Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
Did you all sleep well last night?
Yes.
Those of you who are visiting the campus, sometimes people say when you change location, you can't get sleep easily. Doesn't happen. Sleep comes. All right, wonderful. Did you dream about your startup idea? No? Now you will start. From today onwards, you will start dreaming about your startup idea. Who was it? APJ Abdul Kalam, I think, who said, dreams are not things that you see in your sleep. Dreams are not things that you see in your sleep. They are what keeps you awake at night. So that's the level of passion with which we follow the startup idea. But definitely there is a need to make sure that we lose sleep over the right idea, correct? We can't lose sleep over a wrong idea and then suddenly, oh my God, itna sleep waste ho gaya. And it was after a wrong idea that I was going. We don't want to do that, right? We want to have a well-validated idea. And that's what we are going to discuss today. How do we validate our business idea? Any thoughts? How do you validate a business idea? Let's say I have an idea that we are making a lot of noise in this auditorium. Why don't I create some energy and all these electric bulbs can be run off that energy? Maybe, in some future point of time it will be possible, okay? But tell me, if I have an idea like that, how do I validate the idea? Any thoughts? There are no wrong answers. Just go ahead. Yeah. Person in blue shirt. How do you validate a business idea?
By thinking present market.
By looking at the present market. By looking at the market. Very good point. Yeah. Very good point. Can you clap once for this person? Anytime any suggestion comes in, please applaud so that we are encouraging that person and keeping our blood flow going. Yeah? Okay. How else? Person in the red t-shirt. How do you validate business idea? You can sit down and talk. No problem. Consumer needs. Very brilliant. Very brilliant. Who else? Person in the check shirt, striped shirt. Yeah. What do you call this? A zebra shirt? Yeah. How do you validate a business idea?
Based on the problems in the market.
Based on
Problems in the market.
problem which does not yet seem to have a solution. Remember what Mekit sir said yesterday? That you need to look for a problem which has not yet been solved, which is still giving trouble to the users, to the consumers. So as a part of your idea validation, you also look for if that is a problem that has been solved by 20 other people or 200 other people, is that a good business idea to go after? Unless your idea is better than those 200 ideas that have already been implemented, then it is still a valid business idea. But it is one more idea like that 200, then what you are getting into is what we call a red ocean as compared to being in a blue ocean. What makes the ocean red? What makes the ocean red? Blood. How does the blood come? What animals attack? Sharks. Sharks. That is why in the startup world, people who invest are called sharks. Have you watched Shark Tank?
Yes, sir.
Yeah? They are called sharks because very dangerous people. Very nice if they like your idea. But if you don't start generating the results, they can also be equally strong. They don't play soft ball. They play hardball. So coming back to this concept of red ocean, the red ocean is where there is already a lot of sharks, lot of competitors, lot of fish eating fish, attacking each other. That's what makes it all bloody and red. Whereas a blue ocean is an ocean where there's not too many fish around. It's a relatively unoccupied sea space. That's what makes it the blue ocean. So in future, whenever you hear the word blue ocean strategy, what it means is look for a relatively non-competitive market segment or market space which does not already have too many people offering solutions. Right? Does it make sense? The blue ocean strategy? Yeah? So that's another thing that you are going to look at. How many others are offering these solutions and is it relatively a blue ocean space for you to operate in? What else? You in the dark blue t-shirt. How else do you validate a business idea?
So, basically your USP, what makes you unique, sir? What
What?
makes the idea unique?
What
How do you
makes-
differentiate yourself? Even if there's a group of businesses with the same thing, you can have the same product, but you can have a different selling strategy or marketing
Can
strategy.
you come here? I'll come and sit there. Brilliant. Can we give a big round of applause? Brilliant. Differentiation. How do you differentiate yourself? When somebody thinks of you, what do they think of? Yeah? What is the first idea that comes to your mind when somebody says search? What is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word search?
Google.
Sorry? Who said that? There. Who's saying that? You saying that? You're saying that? Google, of course. Of course, Google. Why are you hesitant? Come on, go ahead. Tell me. If you feel that that is possible answer, go ahead and tell me. That shows how much Google has occupied this word called search. So much so that when you think of search, you think of Google. When you think of photocopying, what do you think of? When you think photocopying, Xerox. People say, take a Xerox copy of this. Little imagining or understanding that Xerox is only one of the companies that offers this copying device. But they have occupied the space so much that they have become a generic word in themselves. We will cover a lot more about how you can brand and position. Yesterday, Venkat Reddy sir told us branding is extremely important. You take the normal produce, take it to the market without grading packaging, without any brand name, you get rock bottom prices. You spend a little bit of effort in separating out the good quality produce and maybe making it 3 or 4 different grades and package it in nice corrugated boxes, give it a nice name, give it a nice branding, suddenly the price goes up by multiple times. You have not done anything to the product itself. The basic product is still the same, but the augmented product is now considered to be much more valuable. Take a normal thing like rice. You go to a rice mandi, loose rice is available at a certain price. But the moment it's put into some bags and there is a name of the company, doesn't the price go up? Still people prefer to buy it. Right? We will see why. It's the same price. Why are you paying more price for it? We'll see. Why is it that people are paying? People are not fools just to pay more. There is something that they are getting out of it. There is a value exchange that is happening. But we will understand that more when we go deeper into the marketing related session. But for now, let's look at business idea evaluation and validation. There are two aspects that you look at when you look at evaluation. One is what is called the technical feasibility. Technical feasibility essentially says, is it technically possible to create this particular solution? Is it technically possible? Does technology today exist for us to create this particular solution? Or are we just talking in the air? Like what I said, from the noise in this room, if I want to create energy to light up the bulbs, that technology is not yet available. Yeah? So, technical feasibility basically looks at, is it possible to build the product with the currently available technology and processes? So, your startup mentor or your startup coach, the first thing they will look at when you present your business idea is to see, is it technically feasible? Or are you living in some la-la land? Are you proposing a solution that is not even technically possible? Yeah, so that is the first test. Is it technically feasible? The second part is it economically viable? What is economically viable? It may be technically possible. For example, to capture the sound and convert it into electrical energy and run these lights may be possible. But suppose it costs 80 lakhs to do that. Whereas for normal electricity for these, we pay, let us say, 5,000 rupees. Would you spend 80 lakhs to do this particular solution? No, it is technically possible, but economically not feasible. Yeah, so economic feasibility asks, is it possible to sell the product at a price that will cover the costs and give you a margin? Just technical feasibility is not appropriate. Otherwise, all of us at home would prefer to have a robot as the maid. Never, no holidays, always on time, never protest, ask it to dust the windows every day, it will dust. But is it economically feasible? Yeah, but the day it becomes economically feasible, I'll be the first one to say yes, I'll take a robot instead of a regular maid. Yeah, but as of today, it is still not economically. Are you getting the difference between technical feasibility and economic viability? So ask yourself this question. When you come up with your startup idea, is it, first of all, something that is in the blue ocean space? Is it the run-of-the-mill idea that everybody seems to be having? So many people are offering that solution, then better not get into that space. We don't want to live in a red ocean and be attacked by sharks all the time. We prefer to be in a blue ocean space which is relatively less competitive. And then you ask yourself this question, is my startup idea technically feasible? Is it possible for me to create the prototype? Do the required technologies, components, etc. exist today? Yeah? Will I be able to build a product using currently available technologies? Available doesn't mean available with you in your pocket today. Anywhere around in the world, can I at least buy the technologies required so that I can build the product? Yeah? And second is, how much it's going to cost for me to create that product? And what does it substitute? Is it substituting something which is 1/10 the cost of my solution? Then nobody will be willing to pay for your new solution. Yeah? So these are the two primary questions you should ask yourself when you come up with your startup idea. And clap once for it. Remember, when you clap, you're activating and you're remembering. Tomorrow, it will be very easy for you to remember what are the two things that you should look at when you look at your startup idea. Yeah, technical feasibility and economic viability. All right. Business idea validation. Idea validation is the process of gathering evidence around ideas through experimentation to make fast, informed, de-risked decisions. Look at all the red highlighted words, those are the keywords in this sentence. We talk about gathering evidence. Don't just say, I feel this will be a successful product. Investors will not respect what you feel. You have to provide evidence. For example, if you are coming up with a solution for, let's say, transportation in a mandi, and if you feel that, oh, there are so many mangoes lying around, one day seeing those mangoes is not enough for an investor to give you 50 lakhs. Startup funds. You need to look at the pattern over a period. Maybe visit that mandi every day and see on an average how much of mangoes are getting wasted. And what quality of mangoes are getting wasted. Are they things that can be repurposed? Maybe you can make pickles out of it. Maybe you can make some other jam out of it. You have to have all the evidence data in place. Only then you'll be able to present it to your investors. Does it make sense? So first of all, gathering the evidence that is required. And the gathering of evidence should not take its own sweet time. Oh, okay, in another 3 years I'll gather data. No. The data gathering should be fast, informed, and should help take a de-risked decision, meaning reduction of risk. Should be a low risk proposition. That's what you are looking at from an idea validation. And validation starts with the idea, right? But ultimately, the real test of a validated idea comes from paying customers. Only when customers start paying for the product or the service that you are offering, not millions, but at least 100. Can you get 100 people to become paying users of your service? Then your business idea gets validated. Until then, you may like the idea because it's your own baby, right? Everybody loves their own baby. Correct? My baby, very, very beautiful baby. But nobody else likes that baby. Nobody else will feed that baby. Yeah? So it has to be clear that your business idea validation will have to end with paying customers willing to open their wallets, take out their credit cards, pay for your idea. Then your business idea has some validation. You can set the number based on the type of product. Your mentor, your coach will also be able to guide you. How many customers should I look for initially? It could be a combination of paying and non-paying customers also. The non-paying customers may give you feedback. Yeah? But everybody cannot be a non-paying customer. So you should have a good mix of the paying customers and non-paying customers, and you can set yourself a target that within the next 3 months I am going to get 500 customers, out of which at least 100 will be paying customers. I'm just giving you a sample. You can decide these numbers. Is it 500? Is it 800? Is it 1000? That depends on your quality, the solution that you're offering, and your ability to do a quick test. Again, this should not take ages, should not take years. By the time you celebrate your 30th birthday, no. Do it in terms of a couple of weeks, a few weeks maximum. Yeah? So, any questions so far? Any questions so far? Is it clear? Idea validation is when people start paying for your product or service, not what you feel. Yeah? Right. We're going to use a tool called a validation board. Alright, so we're going to run a small video. Can you check there is a video on validation board? Just make sure that you take the sound also, so that you're able to hear the sound. So this video is in English, unlike yesterday's video, and listen very carefully because following is slightly challenging. No problem, you can listen to it, and it's a very thorough process that is there for business idea validation. Let's look at the video. No, go to the folder. Go to the folder where you have all the files. And do you find the just tick the sound
Press and focus on what really matters for your new product or business idea. So let's take a look at the validation board. On the top, we have an area where you're going to track your pivots over time. So in Lean Startup, we redefine runway as the amount of pivots a startup can still make. Almost any successful startup that you can think of has had a major pivot over the course of its history. Think about YouTube. It started as an online dating site.
So we talked about a runway. Yeah? What is a runway typically? Where do we understand runway? Airports. Where airplane will have to take off after building a certain amount of speed. So the validation process is being compared to an aircraft from a standstill position, picking up the speed up to the point where it is able to take off. So that entire space from the point where it is static to the point where it is able to lift off is called the runway required for a plane. Of course, runway means the entire place where the planes can run on the ground. But different kinds of aircrafts have different lengths of runways. Some of these fighter planes on the ships in the sea have a very short runway. Hardly about 20 meters and they are able to take off. Because in the sea you cannot have a 100-meter runway, right? Within the ship itself you have to make sure that the runway is completed and takes off. So understand the concept of runway. In validation board, the runway means how much do you have to do the validation before the idea takes off. That's the idea. Okay? Yeah, continue. Please press spacebar.
Instagram was a location-based social network. In the bottom left is where we're going to design an experiment. So we're redefining a product as an experiment, where the goal is actually to learn about customers. In the bottom right, we're helping you measure your progress by learning. And in a lean startup, it doesn't matter how many lines of code you have or how much revenue you have. It just matters how quickly you can learn. So we're redefining productivity. So the first step is defining your core hypotheses. This is the customer, the problem, the solution. We're defining the customer as a group of people with a common pain, and it's in descriptive terms, so it's not traditional demographics that you might think of. The problem is the specific problem that this customer group has. It has nothing to do with the societal problem at large, but you actually want to define it within the...
You see here, very important point. It is incorrect to define your yesterday we talked about problem solution, right? And there was some indication in terms of you can't say that I want to create a new product as a problem. Yeah, it can be a solution, but it can't be a problem. A problem is something that users are facing. What are they inconvenienced by? So, incorrect to say people are not recycling. That's not a problem. But because of that, I mean, why are they not recycling? Because they forget the day of the week in which the truck is going to come and collect. They forget. That is a problem. So you can solve that problem. People are not recycling cannot be solved as a problem because that is to umbrella level, Uber level statement. Yeah. So try and get to a stage where you have a solvable problem, very clearly identifiable solvable problem. That is one of the key steps. For example, you can also say they are confused how to sort out the plastics from the other kind of waste. They are confused, they don't know. So then you can have a solution which says how do you educate people, how do you motivate people, and so on and so forth. Are you getting the idea? So when you come to problem definition, be very clear, because the starting point of the process, and if you do the correct thing here, the rest of the stages will also be correct. But if you make a mistake here, then the mistake will carry on into the rest of the things as well. So when you sit down, for example, today, tomorrow, to define your problem for your business plan, which you will be presenting, remember that the problem must be specific to the person. Things like overall statements, people are not recycling, is not a problem. Make sense? And clap once. Okay. The space.
Private to you if you were having a conversation. Finally, initially, we're not going to actually define the solution because every problem actually has multiple solutions. And if you start with a solution, you may be missing another solution that would be an even better opportunity to solve that problem. After you've defined your core hypotheses, you're going to design an experiment. Ask yourself, what do I need to learn? We start by defining our core assumptions. This is anything that could be a fact that we believe, where if it's invalidated.
So, for validation, first of all, you're saying this is a problem. Okay, you've identified the problem. Then you ask yourself, what are some of the riskiest assumptions? What are some of the assumptions I am thinking is true, but the users may not agree? So identify your riskiest assumption, and your minimum viable product should incorporate that assumption so that you can see what is the user behavior. And you can see whether indeed people are also having the same assumption or they have clarity about it. So in a MVP or a minimum viable product, the idea is to quickly validate whatever are the assumptions that you are making so that your solution will be something people can easily accept. Make sense? Okay.
Would cause the business to fail. So think that you have several core assumptions. You're going to pick the one that is the riskiest. We define the single riskiest one because we only need to prove one of these wrong in order to invalidate the whole business. Now that you have your riskiest assumption, you need to ask yourself, what experiment should I build in order to get this learning? So we have three methods of experimentation that all increase in the cost of testing. The first step is exploration. This is going far and wide, doing customer interviews, looking for problems, trying to find pain points, and you're going to use exploration to drill into the second method, which we call pitch. Pitch is actually asking your customer for some form of currency in exchange for solving a specific problem or for a specific solution. So currency we define as email addresses, cash, anything that your customer is giving up. The final method is concierge. This is actually delivering on the pitch with as little technology as possible to as few customers as you can until they are really, really excited and happy with your service. So each of these three methods increase the cost of testing, and they're all key to do in order before you actually write any code or build any infrastructure in your business. So now that you have the method, it's time to define the minimum success criterion. This is basically asking yourself, how do I know if my experiment is successful? So you're going to decide on what is the minimum amount of validation that you need to continue working on this product.
For example, let's say you have decided to give pre-cooked millet meals at various households. Yeah, your business model says that people have to get conscious about eating millet instead of regular rice, and you have a startup which prepares millet-based nutritious meals, and you will deliver it at households provided they give you advance orders. They order for a month or whatever. We need millet breakfast for 2 people, so please deliver. It's a great startup, right? So you're going to get it prepared and get it delivered at 8 o'clock at everybody's house. Yeah. So if you want to validate this business before you actually establish a kitchen, before you actually get in a cook and invest in all of the infrastructure required to start the startup, you want to find out, will people actually pay for this service? Will people actually use this particular service? And at that stage, if you want to test it out, Do you need to have very attractive plates? Do you need to have very attractive cutlery? Your basic assumption is, will people be satisfied with the millet breakfast? That's what you are basically trying to validate. So the riskiest assumption is that you can always keep changing the kind of containers, the kind of cutlery. Those are the small things. So we don't sweat on the small things. We take the riskiest assumption of people's acceptance of millet for breakfast, and then say, okay, how do I validate that? Right? And then we say, okay, these are the 50 target customers to whom I'm going to provide millet-based meals. I'm not going to ask them for an order or something. And what do I say? If you continue to have millet-based breakfast, in 30 days, you will at least lose 1.5 kilos, for example. Okay? So that's an assumption that you're making, that people will lose at least 1.5 kilos if they have millet breakfast. Now, your business idea validation now has one more assumption, that people are going to lose 1.5 kilos after a 1 month millet-based breakfast. So when you gather the 50 people, you also want to make sure the 50 target group to whom you are going to supply millet-based breakfast, you also want to make sure that you collect evidence about what their current weight is. Only then you'll be able to compare what will be the weight 1 month down the line after millet-based breakfast. Right? So this is evidence collection, data collection, in order to establish that your assumption is validated. Yeah? So you gather the information about their current weight, and you also get them to agree, saying that I'm going to give you a free millet-based breakfast for 2 every morning by 8 o'clock. Would you consume it and give me feedback at the end of the month? Yeah? So they, let's say, agree. You probably have to contact 200 people to get 100 people to agree. That's a different kind of a thing. But let's assume that you've already got the 100 who have agreed to be part of your experiment. Then you actually roll out the service. And you don't do all the bells and whistles. You do it in a bare minimum kind of thing. Maybe some paper plates with a, foil covering or whatever it is. Yeah? Minimum cost, but you're going to basically provide that millet-based meal to the 100 households. And you're going to do that consistently for a period of 30 days. And after 30 days, you're going to be back with a questionnaire to say, how well did you like the taste of the breakfast? Do you think it's a good alternative to your regular breakfast? How much weight have you actually lost? Probably carry a weight machine and say, can I check your weight now? Yeah? With all this data, you are validating. Will people actually consume this or not? And one of your questions may also be, what do you think is a fair price for this kind of a service? If a good nutritious millet meal is provided to you at 8 o'clock every morning for 2 people, how much would you be willing to pay? And what will they be willing to pay? They will compare in their mind. If you have to make dosa, I have to buy flour, I have to grind it, I have to add oil, I have to stand in front of the hot stove for so much of time. So they will, in their mind, quantify all of these and say, okay, breakfast in my house for 2 people costs 200 rupees. Example. Okay. Don't contest the number. Oh, dosa ko kaise 200 rupees. You keep your own number in your mind. I don't get it. Right? So, for an example, they may say, okay, it cost me 200 rupees today to have dosa breakfast for 2 people. Yeah, and then it also costs a lot of effort from my end. I have to make sure that the flour, the atta doesn't become sour over time. So I may have to grind the flour at least once in 2 days so that dosa is fresh, and so on and so forth. So many considerations may be there. Yeah, and then I compare that with the convenience of getting a pre-cooked, ready, nutritious millet-based breakfast at 8 o'clock every day. And then I may say, I'm willing to pay up to 175 rupees. Yeah? So you're validating before you launch. Remember what Redbus founder Fanindra did? He had just a screen and he said, how many users are going to click on? Yes, I would like to travel and I would like to buy tickets from this particular portal. Yeah? On a similar basis, we are validating our business idea using a minimum prototype. Yeah, minimum viable product, MVP, or a minimum viable experiment. Yes, you have a question?
So there'll be a little gray area on that one. So So if there are 100 people who are going to buy that meal, so it also depends on the rest of the day. What is their meal through the rest of the day? Because not everybody is going to eat the same thing. So if they have the same breakfast, their lunch won't be the same.
Yeah.
So how can you quantify how much weight this person will lose?
So
it will vary with person.
I fully agree with you, and I'm fully on your side. But you look at the essence of the whole thing rather than the actual eating, because you may have a different way of doing it. My hypothesis, if you notice, was if I have millet-based breakfast continuously for one full month, I will lose. That is a hypothesis statement. Now you are saying that hypothesis statement I am not fully convinced about. I want a different hypothesis statement. You are free to make your hypothesis statement. Yeah, I am only looking at the process after having decided what is the hypothesis statement. What's the process of testing or validation? That's the focus. Yeah, but your point is valid. You need to keep those aspects also in mind. Yes, you have a question?
So in the same way, when you told about validating the idea,
Yeah.
you told that you'll be providing breakfast to 50 people every day. So it also depends on them if they eat the breakfast for 30 days continuously, right? So if suppose they don't eat breakfast for like 10 days or 15 days, they just receive it. But you might think that okay, they're eating it. So how can your results be?
Yeah, so in any of these kind of surveys, there will always be a margin of error due to all of these. One of the reasons why I said you choose 200 and then shortlist the 100 who agree to be part of your experiment is for that. So you are not just choosing 100 and forcing them. If you just forcibly give them the millet-based meal, they may not have, like you said, 20 of the days. But if you already bought in the idea, saying that you be part of this experiment, maybe at the end of it I also give you some additional gift for having participated in this experiment. Yeah, then you have a set of people. So what we are trying to do, I'm happy about the curiosity and the kind of questions that you're coming up with, but these fall in certain other areas where we have to dig deeper. Right now, we are only focused on validation of a business idea. But I'm happy that you're thinking through, it shows the seriousness with which you're looking at the whole process. Good about that. So keep in mind that we can't boil the ocean. Right? In one session of 15 minutes, we cannot have a foolproof, completely validated thing that you can just start off your startup. Yeah? We are learning step by step by step. As compared to yesterday where we got inspired by some of these great startups, now we are getting to rubber meeting the road. Where we are saying, my idea, how do I validate before I put my efforts behind it. So step by step, little bit of patience. Can I ask for that? Clap if you.
And with everyone and all your stakeholders involved, decide the minimum amount of validation from customers from getting out of the building that you need to continue working on this. Then it's time to get out of the building and experiment with customers. Now that you've collected data from real customers, it's time to decide if you've met your minimum success criterion. If not, the hypothesis, the riskiest assumption, is invalidated, and it's time to figure out a pivot by pivoting one of your core hypotheses. If you've met it, it's validated, and then you're actually going to brainstorm the next riskiest assumption and do a test.
Okay, so what you're doing is, one by one, all the key assumptions you will validate. How many assumptions you validate? That's up to you as a startup entrepreneur. Which ones do you feel are critical for the success of your venture? You will decide. Maybe you will consult your coach, you will consult your mentor, and arrive at a set of assumptions that you need to validate. Yeah, and one after the other you validate your assumptions. Once they are all validated, then you know that you are ready to launch. Like Farindra, once he got to a stage where there were 100 people who clicked on buy ticket, the radio button that said buy ticket, he knew that there are enough number of people who may be interested in going through with this. But that still did not validate, will they pay by credit card or will they pay by money transfer, what kind of means they will use. Yeah, so that is another assumption that he'll have to have. That will people be willing to pay through credit card? So he may define that as an assumption and test that through another cycle. But all of these are rapid cycles, not things that takes a long time. All defined in terms of number of days or maximum few weeks. So that you maintain the pace and you come very quickly to a decision or arrive at the conclusion that my business idea looks to be almost validated. Almost validated. Yeah? And you are on firmer ground than when you just got the inspiration. Is the process clear? So, we are taking it step by step towards that. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So, we talked a bit about lean startup methodology yesterday. The purpose of lean startup methodology is to ensure that we don't go broke. Just by becoming a startup entrepreneur, the first attempt at startup does not financially wipe us off. Then our fathers will say, just go and write the test and join some job, forget all these startup dreams. Yeah? Knowing fully well that the rate of success of startups is only 10%. Again, not an entrepreneur, but the idea. Entrepreneur fails only when he or she gives up. But startup ideas do fail, and 90% is the failure rate. So, in order to protect ourselves from this phenomenon of high rate of failure, Eric Rice, E-R-I-C-R-I-E-S, we talked about him yesterday. Eric Rice came up with this concept of lean startup methodology. And lean startup methodology is basically business idea validation at a minimal risk and cost. Yeah, that is the philosophy behind the whole concept of business idea validation. And how does he do that? Lean startup is an approach for launching businesses and products that rely on, note the highlighted words, validated learning, scientific experimentation, and iterative product releases. Each of these is very, very important, and you need to think very deeply about each of these. First is validated learning, not just one एक बार देख लिया तो learning हो गया. No, you have to validate it by trying to repeat it over time and make sure that yes, the learning that I am deriving from this is indeed a validated learning. Second, your experimentation should also be scientific. What happens in scientific experiments, normal science experiments in laboratories? Why is it called a scientific experiment? We follow certain rules and procedures, exactly, and the end result is predictable. A scientific experimentation, once you have completed, arrive at an inference, anybody does it anywhere else, they will get the same result, isn't it? So that is the basis of a scientific experiment. Yeah? So now it's not a random kind of chance event that you did something happened, and like for example, the 50 people losing weight, let's say that month there was no rice available in the ration shops, and therefore they missed the lunch and the dinner, and because of that they lost 5 kilos. Then you can't say that, oh, I have validated my business idea, right? So it has to be a scientifically designed experimentation, and it should be iterative product releases. Small improvements, repeat. Small improvements, repeat release. Small improvements, repeat release. So that you constantly contain the amount of risk that you are taking. Yeah, small steps. It's called Kaizen. In Japan, Japanese call it Kaizen. Kaizen is small improvements. Ultimately, it will have fantastic benefits, but they don't believe in this big bang approach. Throw away this and install this new thing. The West believes in that. Throw out all the systems, install SAP, and then they cry for the next 10 years. Yeah? So, as compared to the big bang approach, iterative approach is always the best when it comes to startups. The customer needs and pains can be looked at either through qualitative data or quantitative data. What is qualitative? You do a customer interview. You ask a customer, what did you feel about this? How did you like this? And gather the information from the customer which is qualitative information. There may be some judgmental aspects as well, and you are aware because it's a qualitative data. Similarly, support emails and chat. For example, you have a support team that says anytime somebody reports a problem, you get in touch with them, get to understand why they face the problem, what was the error message that they got, etc., which is gathering the data from the support group. Similarly, Twitter stalking. Stalking is not the stalking that you guys are thinking about, okay? Not that stalking. Twitter stalking is basically monitoring Twitter to see what are the trends that are happening, how many people are talking about something, etc., which gives you an indication on what is trending. Yeah, so if you have a solution, you could post a post on Twitter and then watch what are the reactions. Or you could go to Quora and put a question there and then see who is responding to what. Yeah, so these are some of the ways in terms of collecting. But remember, these are all qualitative data. It is colored by the judgment of the people who are providing the responses. So it's not like the quantifiable data. From competitors, from behavior observation, for example, if you were to come up with a solution for, let's say, a retail related solution for all these people who are providing all the pesticides, insecticides, etc. And you want to design a solution that makes it easier for these people to sell their products. The focus is on the input providers, retailers. Now, if you really want to design a good solution, you need to go and observe the behavior of the farmers who visit the shop. You can't just go and ask the retailer, or you can't just go and ask the farmer. It can't be done through an interview process. You go sit there, watch so many farmers coming in, what do they ask for? How do they make a decision? So you observe the behavior of the farmers, which gives you a lot of data, right? And you can also have usability studies, controlled experimentation to see what is the kind of results that you are getting. You can also do quantitative data, which could be internal data, external data, or you could do surveys. Yeah. So these are all methods of collecting data during your validation process. Yeah. The Holy Grail. There are no religious connotations in this. Just use this term called Holy Grail. The Holy Grail, that is something that everybody is extremely interested in, is something that we already discussed, which is called MVP. Minimum Viable Product. As startup entrepreneurs, all of you should know Lean Startup Methodology, should know what is MVP, Minimum Viable Product. Not just expansion, but please go through this, Google this, get enough information so that you really become experts at what this minimum viable product is all about. Are you all agreeing to do that? No reaction. Please clap. Okay, so minimum viable product is that version of a new product which allows a team to collect maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least effort. Minimum effort, but maximum validated learning. Yeah? When we are able to get that, that's what we call a minimum viable product. Why do we need a minimum viable product? To reduce the risk, otherwise you end up becoming financially bankrupt. If you try to make the full-fledged product in the first go itself, you don't really know what the customers want. First you provide, let's say take the screen itself as an example. Let's say Paninder decides the screen for Red Bus, and first he places the radio button at the top right hand corner and he sees the reaction or the comparisons. Then he places the same radio button at the bottom corner, maybe in the middle, etc., etc. And then he says, which one gave the best results? Now the minimal effort, right? Just move the radio button from this end to this end. It's a minimal effort, but you're getting a lot of data about how many customers are now finding it easier to use the screen. Yeah, like this, so you design certain experiments which will ensure that you get to know what the customer really wants And how do you deliver customer delight faster? You as a startup entrepreneur learn faster and you define a narrow scope within which you can do the experimentation. Because if the experimentation is too broad, like we know that weight has been lost, but is it because what they ate for lunch or dinner? Right? So when the scope is not narrowly enough decided, you cannot depend on the end results. Maybe impacted by so many other factors. Right? Are you getting the point? Just before the election, everybody is given 6,000 rupees to vote for that party. Yeah? But do they vote for that party? We don't know. They will be taking the 6,000 from all the party. तुम भी दे दो फिर मैं इसको चाहिए मैं जाके वोट कर लेता हूँ, right? So there is no validated process by which people can really know it. But when we design experiments, we have to have a narrow enough scope to ensure that the results that come out of that experiment helps us to validate some assumption that we are making. Yeah? Okay. You can learn, like I said, even without a minimum viable product. You can learn with a minimum viable experiment. But this is only for certain product categories. Not possible for all types of product categories or all kinds of solutions. And your coach or your mentor will be able to guide you as to whether your kind of solution deserves a full-fledged MVP or you can make do with an MVE. But here, thanks to what Professor Venkatreddy told us yesterday, Venkatrao told us yesterday, creating a minimum viable product in an agri startup is no big deal because there are so many institutions where if you submit a good business plan, they'll help you to create the prototype at no additional cost to you. That's the level of support that's available from central government, from various state government, from all the institutions that yesterday we saw, right? So many state investment associations, this, that, all kinds of bodies which are standing ready. You just bring the entrepreneurial spirit and we'll make you successful. That's what they are trying to say. Yeah? So for agri startups, we are in a good space because government wants to encourage startups in agriculture. Yeah? Yesterday, remember the video that we saw? Kind of investment that's happening in agri startups? Significant amount of support that's available. So don't worry about the cost of MVP and all that. You guys are in a very good space. You just focus on making great business plan. Have a great startup idea, validate your startup idea, make sure that you create a good business plan. We'll discuss later today about what are the elements that should go into a business plan. We'll talk about that. But once you have that, you're all set. The product, prototyping, etc. There are so many institutions that help you. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. So, we won't delve too much into this. I think we have talked about it, like customer interviews, landing page test, like in addition to Redbus, there's also Buffer, which has got an example. What happened was, Buffer provided storage space for people. Okay. And they found that to provide the storage space, in order to create the infrastructure, it was costing them $100. To provide, let's say, 10 terabytes of space, it was costing them $100. The customers were willing to pay up to $25. So for every 100 terabytes that is sold, they would end up losing $75. Then a viable business? Economically viable? No. Many of the large startups that we see today are operating in loss, essentially just to get customer base, because they think at some point of time, someday in the future, they'll be able to convert all of these customers into profitable paying customers. But in many cases, it's a pipe dream. That's the reason why, after some time, either they have to retrench staff or they have to give up on their dreams. Because you remember those two ladders that Sir showed us yesterday? The one with small steps which can lead you to the top, or with big steps that looks very attractive. And with just 5 steps I can reach the top. But it's not that easy. Yeah? So all of what we are talking about right from yesterday morning, try in your mind to connect all the dots. connect all the dots, then it makes it easier for you to remember and implement all the right things. Alright? Okay. So, there is a thing called innovation accounting. How do you have an accounting system for the innovation that you bring into your startup? And first of all, you have to establish the baseline, which is what we talked about. Build a minimum viable product and measure how customers are behaving right now. Before you introduce the solution, your solution, what are the customer behavior currently? Only then you'll be able to see before and after, right? So before introducing the millet meal, you took the weight of the people. So that after 1 month of eating millet meal, you can look at the after and before and after come. So for every situation, before you actually introduce your product, you should baseline what is the current situation. And then only you will be able to actually measure the impact of your solution. Are you getting it? Yeah? Second, tune the engine. In the first shot, you may not end up with the most ideal of solutions. So you have to keep on tweaking, keep on making minor changes, so that you ultimately end up arriving at the final solutions. If you have taken your two-wheeler or your car for servicing, that's what the mechanic does, right? He wants to fine-tune the engine. Does he do it in one shot and say, okay, stop it, take it out? No, he does a little bit, then tries it out, little bit, tries it out, little bit, tries it out. Then he will be able to calibrate appropriately. Yeah, so even with startups, that's what we do. Make minor, small changes and see the impact of those changes on the customer behavior and use that to calibrate whatever solution should actually look like. Yeah? Come on, I think we need some rock here. The third aspect that we need to look at is, do we pivot or persevere? Persevere means continue in the same direction. Continue doing what you've been doing. Pivot means change direction. So let's look at how we change direction. A pivot is a fundamental change in business strategy. Some change you make based on the experimentation that you are doing. Remember, we are still in the validation, business idea validation discussion. So you designed an MVP, you have launched it to a few test customers, you're gathering scientific data about their behavior, and you're understanding how effective is the solution, and you find that it's not as effective as you would like it to be. You still need an improvement. So what do? You pivot, or you change something in it to get better results. So pivot is a fundamental change in business strategy. If you conclude that your business strategy isn't likely to succeed, you can change your strategy. This is where the mindset of the entrepreneur comes in. As an entrepreneur, you don't think, oh, this is my idea, how will I throw it out? You're having an attachment to the idea, not to the end result or success. If you keep on thinking, oh, this idea can't be wrong, it came from my brain after all, what will happen? You'll end up wasting a lot of time. Yeah? So the entrepreneur mindset is, if it's not working, I drop it. Yeah? Whatever doesn't work, dispassionately, I'm willing to change it. A true entrepreneur is learning how to build a sustainable enterprise, not make a single product idea a success. Entrepreneurship is a journey where you're learning the art of entrepreneurship. It's not about success of the first product that you do. If you make a success of the first product, it means you're becoming a better entrepreneur. You make 2 products successful, much better entrepreneur. 3 products successful, great entrepreneur. Which means now you figured out how to make products successful. So the process of developing yourself as an entrepreneur, that is really key. That is the reason why, even if your first startup fails, still nobody can take away the experience that you had as an entrepreneur. That experience is yours to keep. Similarly, let's say even the second one, oh God forbid, fails, bombs, but still that experience is yours. You know the things that you should not do. Whereas somebody who's never tried will not even know that. Yeah, so the process of building entrepreneurial skills is through these experimentations that we do. And the ability to dispassionately drop something that doesn't work and substitute it with some other strategy. Yeah, so that's pivoting. There are various ways in which we can pivot our ideas. I'm going to give you a few examples, and I'm going to go a little fast in this because I think we need to cover a lot of ground. Zoom in is when a single feature of your product becomes the entire product. You had a set of 5 features, but you found that one of the features is being used very frequently by people, and then you decide, okay, why don't I just make the product that one feature itself? Have you heard of Flickr? Flickr as a startup, it started as a social media site. One of the features was photo sharing. But they found when they launched it that most of the people who are using the photo sharing part of Flickr, they're not using the other parts of Flickr. So what did they do? They made Flickr into a photo sharing app. And it became huge results. So that's called zoom in on that feature that users seem to like. At the same time, zoom out where the product is too narrow to support a business and you decide to make it a broader product. When Mark Zuckerberg in the Harvard dormitory decided to launch Facebook or decided to make it. Those of you who watched the movie The Social Network, has anybody watched The Social Network? Yeah? So, yeah. So, there, whole thing, Zuckerberg was a naughty guy. You know that, right? Very mischievous guy. So, he was in the dorm, and the app that he developed was comparing 2 girls' photographs from the campus. He could access the photograph of all the girls in the campus. So he launched an app where he would present to each of his friends 2 photos, 2 girls' photos, and they would vote which is the better looking girl. And they will keep on repeating. Sometimes the same girl's photo also will come up. So end of the day, they will find out which girl is looking the most beautiful as per the opinion of the campus. Yeah, that's good. You like the idea, huh? Giving an inspiration. So it started with that. But suddenly, we found that it was becoming an entire social media tool. There are so many other things that are possible. You can grow farm animals in that. You can do Ludo in that. You can play blackjack in that. You can do so many different things. So then he zoomed out. He didn't retain it with the original feature that he had in mind when he decided on Facebook. Yeah? That way, he expanded the number of features, and today, Facebook is a full-fledged social media platform. And so on and so forth. We won't go into specific examples for each of these. You can also pivot on customer segment, on customer need, on business architecture. Business architecture, let me give you an example. YouTube, when it originally started, it was supposed to be a dating site. Meaning that if, for example, I wanted to date a girl, I would get on YouTube and put a video, 1-minute video, explaining why I am very dateable. Okay, similarly, girls will also be uploading their respective 1-minute videos, and YouTube will has an algorithm which will look at common interests. Hey, this guy also likes skiing, this girl also likes skiing. So maybe there's a match. Like, reminds you of some application now? Tinder, yeah, exactly. Something like Tinder. This is the old version, okay? So, it started like that. YouTube started like that. But they found that people were uploading cat videos. Nothing to do with dating. But they were cat licking its own paws. It became so popular, so many views. Then they decided that this is not a dating related app, this is a video repository. And very quickly they said, let's encourage everybody to upload. Do you have an idea how many videos are getting uploaded every minute into YouTube? Even as we speak? Just tell me a number. Just take a guess. Huh? 1 bigger than that. It runs into millions. More than 30 million videos are getting uploaded world over. Yeah? So it's gone far beyond what the original conception of the founder was. Yeah? So pivoting is essentially you can pivot on any specific aspect, but you should have the ability to understand that what pivot can give you what better results. So as you work with your startup idea, you may have to pivot some of the features of your startup idea through experimentation, not that essentially इसको बदल के देखो यार, इसको बदल के देखो। बदल के क्या करोगे? Data gather करोगे, validated data gather करोगे ताकि compare कर सके। Are you all comfortable with Hindi? Yeah. Anyone here who doesn't follow Hindi? I'm not going to do my entire session in Hindi, but here and there I will use one or two Hindi sentences to show you that I know Hindi. Okay, so if you can't follow, just let me know. Okay, so this is about pivot. So, in startup world, speed wins. While we have said take small steps, don't take big steps and fail big. But don't say, अच्छा एक step ले लिया, 3 महीने के बाद next step लेना. No, speed is important, right? If we reduce the time between the pivots, we can increase the odds of success before we run out of money. So the whole principle of lean startup is increase the number of pivots. Keep on having pivots at regular frequencies and learn, validated learning from each of these. If you rapidly do that, your startup will become a success. So the unit of progress for every iteration that you do, there is a process, customer discovery, understanding the features, and then you do test and go to the next stage, and so on and so forth. So one by one, you're making sure that you're making the product as robust as possible. Like the example of Anindra, where he first found out, are people willing to click on the link, then are people willing to pay by credit cards, etc. Right? So each is a step by itself. So there's a validation which follows this kind of a cycle. The loop that it takes us, you build, you code it, you measure, you gather data, and you learn from that. And wait for that to give you fresh ideas. So this cycle is what we are going to increase the speed of. And the faster we are able to run this cycle, the more data will come in, and the faster your startup can become a success. Yeah. So remember to check out this video on minimum viable product, Eric Rice. What I have done is no justice to the fundamentally very strong concept that he has come up with. But with the limited time that we have, we can only do this much justice to it. Yeah, but I hope I have triggered in you an interest in this concept. And I want you to really dig deeper into it and understand and learn how to use minimum viable product and lean startup methodology for your respective startups. Okay, can we clap once? Okay, so there is deeper aspect in each of these, we won't go into this. So these are some of the questions that we will have. As we are doing a validated testing, how do we know when to pivot? Okay? The simple answer is as frequently as needed. When is it needed? That you will get to know. If you find that customer acceptance of a certain feature, certain thing is not up to the mark, or if you have suddenly an idea of how come I'm using only this, what happens if I use this, or your mentor or guide or startup ecosystem, somewhere you gather some idea saying, why don't you try this? It's time to pivot. But if you pivot at a lesser frequency than once a quarter, then you are not doing enough. If you do once a month, you are good. But at least you do once a quarter. If you are not doing once a quarter, then you have to say, hold on, opportunity. Vision or strategy or product. I have a vision. I started with a vision to build something. Now suddenly you are saying validated learning, gather data, and what happens to my vision? The end product may be completely different from what I originally had as a vision. What is important? Success or sticking to your vision which is outdated. I am saying outdated, it means that it has not been validated by customer acceptance. You had a vision, you tried it out, customers not seeming to buy it, they don't seem to be liking it. Will you say, no, it's my vision, I'll stick to it? No. Right? You want to come out with a successful product or successful service. And therefore, that agility to keep making the changes that are required and saying, ठीक है, vision तो था. Like Mark Zuckerberg had a vision to make a dating related site, but he didn't stop with that. Otherwise, he would not have become the multi-billionaire that he is, right? So the ability as an entrepreneur to let go of certain ideas, even if it's his or her own, is a very important part of the learning process. Yeah, call it unlearn. Unlearn. Along with learning, we also unlearn. What should we measure? The key data elements that help you to validate your assumptions. Yeah? Otherwise, you have too much on your plate. You are trying to boil the ocean. You don't want to do that. So upfront, you are going to say, which are my, you remember the validation board? Where he said, take one assumption that is most critical and gather data to validate that. Once that gets validated or unvalidated, then pick up the next idea, next assumption. Yeah? So that's how we measure. And how do products grow? By taking this iterative approach. Never get satisfied, say, oh, we're finished. If Facebook had got satisfied 15 years ago, 10 years ago, they would not have built this kind of a place. But I know that practically none of you may be on Facebook now. It's old technology, right? It's what your fathers and grandfathers are on. Why do you want to be on Facebook? Yeah, you have much better social media tools now. Correct? Yeah, which is what Facebook is now realizing, that the younger generation not coming on Facebook. Nobody is making a fresh account on Facebook. Old. This is only for the 40-year-olds, people higher than that. Yeah? Are we creating value? Because it is value that the customer pays. If a request customer is willing to pay it because he sees value in the fact that he doesn't have to go travels and can take whatever price the travel is offering. Yeah? He sees value in that. Sitting at his desk and being able to. When I started off, we were given the project with CMC, we were given the project of designing the computerized passenger reservation system for Indian Railways. Before that, during summer holidays, there would be long queues of people in front of various windows or terminals. Each terminal or each terminal is a wrong term, there was no terminal. Each window would cater to one train and one class. So if you want a second class ticket in Tamil Nadu Express, example, I go and stand in one queue. Okay? And it keeps progressing. After some time, suddenly a board comes up saying, over, tickets are not there. If I want to shift to first class, then I have to look for the first class queue. Another window. Yeah? It used to be horrible and place was not air conditioned. No need for air conditioning because after all only human beings are there. No computers. Why air conditioning? From that to a stage where you could go to the reservation complex and book for any train starting from anywhere to go anywhere on any date by any class and get a confirmed reservation on the spot was by itself a big jump. But did we stop at that? Did we say, okay, fine, we have solved that reservation problem? No, because the mobile generation was coming in. They said, "Arey, who will go to the reservation complex? Yeah. Can I do it from my mobile? Yeah, today you can do it from your mobile, right? You can just say, Alexa, book me a ticket to Indore, and it will book your ticket. Yeah? So it's every time you have to look at what is it that next step, what is it that I can keep doing to my product or service to keep it always on the edge. We don't sit back after designing a good product. Because needs of consumers are changing. And you have to keep up with this market, keep up with the competition in this market. Yeah? Okay. So what's in the MVP? What is the MVP? Those features that you want validated by the customer. Not all the bells and whistles. Yeah? And can we go faster? It's a question that you should constantly ask yourself. Am I going fast enough? Can I go faster? Yeah? So these are sample questions that as startup entrepreneurs you need to keep in mind. And it will help you keep increasing the effectiveness of your startup. There are some myths. Lean means cheap. Lean is only for people who don't have money. Otherwise, you can just go in with the normal approach. No, not true. Even big companies like Microsoft that's got lots of money still use the lean approach. Because lean is not about spending less money. Of course, you end up spending less money, but it's actually about, it's not about cost, it's actually about speed. How fast are you able to create a marketable product? Yeah, so it's not always about cost, it's also about speed. Myth number 2, the lean startup is only for computer application development or IT. No, it is for all industries, manufacturing industries, retail outlets, agriculture startups, all kinds of startups can use the lean startup methodology. It is across the board. 3, lean startups are small bootstrap startups. When you don't have any big funding and when you're spending your grandma's savings, only the lean startup will be valid. No, it's not true. Okay? Even if you have a lot of money, give me most of the money and then spend less money on the lean startup. Lean startup is a method that, as we discussed earlier, helps in terms of speed. And also is an elegant way of approaching your lean startup. So lean startups are ambitious and are able to deploy large amounts of capital. Last myth, lean startups replace vision with data or customer feedback. Whatever customer says, I accept. My vision goes for a toss. That's a myth. No. Lean startups are driven by a compelling vision. Starts off with a compelling vision. And you stay true to the vision, but have the flexibility to make the changes if the customer so desires. You may have to change a few things, but your basic vision on why you are starting up that particular thing, like I want to help maximum number of farmers and reduce the number of suicides in Karnataka to less than 2% within 3 years. Now, this is a very noble kind of a cause. Yeah, and when the why is strong, the what and the how will automatically show itself to you. Why am I doing this? If it is strong enough, then the how and the what should I do will become evident. Yeah? Okay. So that brings us to the end of the session on business idea validation. What is one key takeaway that you will do starting today? What is the one wow idea that you got from this session that's going to help you? Sorry? Pivot. Say it confidently. Come on, loud. Pivot. Your idea. Very good. Can we give a big round of applause? Anybody else? MVP. Loud? No. Come on. I want to hear it.
MVP.
MVP. Alright.
ಮತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
I'm sorry. Can somebody translate that for me?
Again, thinking of our own idea.
Iterative thinking. Absolutely brilliant. Any other?
Validation board.
Validation board. Brilliant. I mean, we can now, again, validation board is not my invention. Okay, it's there on the net. If you want to go and Google for validation board, you will get it. In fact, you may get more than one validation board. It's a concept. What I showed you was one example. Doesn't matter which one you use. Go through it so that you'll get a good idea, and then you can pick the right one for the first time. Yeah, very good. Can we go big round of applause? Okay, good. Any other thoughts?
To make sure we're in the blue ocean.
Ah, brilliant! You are there. Stand up. Give it a standing ovation. Standing ovation. Make sure that you are in the blue ocean. Always in the blue ocean. Don't get into the red ocean. Let others fight over it. Let them kill themselves. Yeah? Good. Very good point. Any other? Good. I'm very happy with the interaction that all of you had. I'm sure that with this kind of diligence, all of your startups are going to be extremely successful. Manage is always available to you, and as a person associated with Manage, we arrange for a lot of top-up sessions, additional sessions, and I'm sure UHS will also encourage you to take on your startup. This is not a program that will end this Friday. This is just a process to trigger off your startup dreams. Yeah? So I'm sure all of you have a notebook now. One notebook in which you can jot down everything relating to startups during these 5 days, and even later when you do your field visit, when you come to Hyderabad to Manage, when you go to your overseas opportunity. 28 of you are going to get the opportunity to go overseas and see how startup ecosystem works there. What a brilliant opportunity, you know? What a brilliant opportunity. I would be so keen if I were sitting in your seat. I would have made sure that I get all my T's crossed and all my I's dotted. And I get such a strong business plan that I will definitely be the top of that 28 list. How many of you are going to try for that? Yeah? Great. Superb. So all support available to you. If you want to discuss anything, if you want to clarify something, we are here. We don't have any better work to do. In 4-5 days, we are dedicated to this. So feel free to come, take time from us, talk to us, sound out our ideas, and make sure that you come up with a very strong business plan. All the very best to all of you.
Okay, dear students, the tea has been arranged outside, okay? Tea and the mild snack is arranged. Take it, and all of you should go in queue. Not like mixed up and all together just gathering whatever you want. Not that way. Go in queue, take one by one. Then please wait inside only, don't go outside. Today board of meeting is there, okay? All key officers from the different and the board management people have also come. Don't make noise, please. Yesterday what you guys were used to do, standing outside laughing, don't do that. Board of meeting is already going on. Just stay inside only. Whatever snacks we are providing you, take it and stay inside only. And when that session will over, we will send you there. Okay? Just go outside and take one by one and be inside only. And don't make noise. It's a request. Otherwise we will be okay, guys, you take the snacks, come inside and have. Okay? Stuff also change. Instead of standing outside, come inside. Go this way. All of you please go this way.
As long as you have a differentiation with the creative identity startup, great. So you have your startup idea.
main problem really even problem solution everything like I've already like what we said the assumptions what we said, I've done that also. And actually I'm in the trial phase. I'm already doing trial.
Okay.
But how I'm like exactly going to approach people like the business model of that and how I'm going to jot on the financial statement for the countries where I'm finding it.
You will find it step by step. Today is the second day, right? You're not even through with the second day. So by the end of 5 days, you will have a good idea, and then it's entirely up to you as to how you're going to act on the idea.
Yes, sir, but-
Tomorrow's business plan.
yes, sir. For that also they've asked business model how you
You are also recognizing the fact that you're all not already startup entrepreneurs.
Exactly,
So
sir.
the assessment will also be based on that. So do it confidently. What we're looking for is confidence. Come out and present your ideas.
But then before presenting, they are actually given a soft skills. So it is just that they
Again, in that module, it will be like you have to meet and then you
So you can always think about what would make you able to do that job. Ultimately, you have pivot.
Yes, sir.
They want they can come later also.
Good. All the best.
Thank you.